the Grand Master of Demonic Cultivation. Chapter 94. Longing, Part 6. Lan Wangji didn't listen to him. His eyes were still glued to Wei Wuxian as though he was scared that if he blinked once, Wei Wuxian might run away. Wei Wuxian reached out to shut his eyes, and he buried the lower half of his face into the water, letting out a series of bubbles. Wei Wuxian laughed as he lightly pinched his cheek. Jeej, how old are you? He grabbed the soap and cloth from the side, and wiped from Lan Wangji's face downwards. As he wiped away, his movements suddenly paused. Back then, Lan Wangji took off his hair tie and forehead ribbon on his own. His hair fell and covered his upper body. But now, after he moved Lan Wangji's wet, black hair behind his shoulder and began to wipe his chest, the 30 or so discipline whip marks and the brand at his chest could be seen with clarity. Wei Wuxian took the cloth and moved to his back. The whip marks climbed from Lan Wangji's back all the way to his chest, shoulders, arms, sprawling across the smooth, white skin. These almost hideous scars, whether dark or light, destroyed what could be called the perfect male body. Wei Wuxian was suddenly silent. He dipped the cloth in water and traced the whip scars. He was extremely gentle, as if he didn't want to hurt Lan Wangji, but these were old wounds already. They'd never hurt again. And even if they were fresh scars, with Lan Wangji's personality, he definitely wouldn't display a single sign of weakness, even at the most painful times. Wei Wuxian really wanted to use this opportunity to ask him just how in the world he got these scars. In the Gusu Lan sect, the only people with the right to punish Lan Wangji like this were An Zichen and Lin Qiren. Just what did he do for his brother, the one closest to him, or his uncle, the one who single-handedly brought him up and took pride in him so much, to do such a cruel deed? The Qishanwen sex brand that he'd never seen, and the question that he'd always held in the back of his mind, the question he wanted to ask the most. Han Guangjun, just what do you think of me? But every time it was close, he'd find some reason to blur things over. Like maybe he shouldn't be so eager and ask after he played with him long enough, like not being so casual and asking after they sat down properly, like maybe the words of the drunk weren't to be trusted. Despite all these excuses, he knew the real reason quite well. It was probably because he was afraid. He was scared he'd hear an answer different from what he hoped for. Suddenly, Lan Wangji turned around and glanced at him. Wei Wuxian finally noticed that as he scrubbed him, his mind began to roam around, rubbing the snowy skin on Lan Wangji's back so red that it seemed like someone had beat him up. Wei Wuxian thought the look Lan Wangji gave him might mean he wasn't satisfied with the work, and so he stopped at once. Sorry. Does it hurt? Lan Wangji didn't say anything, only shaking his hand. Seeing how he looked, all quiet and obedient, sitting in the tub, Wei Wuxian felt quite sorry. Curving his finger, he scratched his chin to show comfort. Just the chin wasn't even enough. Feeling his fingers itch, he even wanted to poke Lan Wangji's abs, but before it was even halfway there, his wrist was suddenly caught by Lan Wangji, whose voice was low, "Do not touch me." A few transparent drops of water still remained on his eyelashes and his handsome features. His expression seemed cold, but his eyes were searing. Tonight, Wei Wuxian had already done countless frivolous little things to Lan Wangji. He'd long since gotten used to Lan Wangji letting him do whatever he wanted. Right now, having been stopped so suddenly, he was still brave. Why not? Haven't you let me touch you for so long already? Lan Wangji's lips were sealed. He said nothing, whether angered or not. Seeing this, Wei Wuxian was a bit guilty. Fine. I won't touch you anymore. Do it yourself. As he spoke, he tossed the cloth away and was about to leave. Yet, not only did Lan Wangji refuse to let him go, the hand around his wrist gripped even tighter. He ordered, "Do not go." Wei Wuxian struggled for some time and couldn't get out of it. He steeled his nerves. Han Guangjun, now you're at fault here. You told me to wash your face, didn't let me touch you, and didn't let me go. Just what do you want me to do? After a moment of silence, Lan Wangji's tone was almost unreasonable. In any case, you may not go. Wei Wuxian splashed some water onto Lan Wangji's face. Look at you, all domineering and unreasonable. Lan Wangji didn't flinch or dodge even as the water splashed onto his face. I told you not to touch me. This seemed like a warning. Perhaps because the wine really had a strong after effect, Wei Wuxian's head felt abnormally feverish. The corner of his mouth curved up. If I'm touching you, no matter what can you do to me? Punish me by making me copy scriptures? Have me grounded? Or silence me? Lan Wangji's eyes were locked on him. Sparks seemed to flash across his gaze. He appeared to be angered. The face, the expression, the eyes, the situation, and the person. Wei Wuxian drew in a breath. As though having decided to go all out, he shoved his other hand into the water, found a certain part of Lan Wangji's body, and scooped. Han Guangjun, don't tell me you don't like it when I touch you like this. Wei Wuxian's daring words and act finally enraged his opponent. Lan Wangji seemed as if he'd been bitten by a poisonous snake, pulling violently. Wei Wuxian felt a terrifying force sweep over. He couldn't help from being pulled in. Water splashed everywhere. Things had gotten out of hand. It was all the same, no matter who started it first. When Wei Wuxian felt a bit more clear-headed, he was already sitting on Lan Wangji's legs. The two embraced and kissed each other in such a position for quite a long while. Wei Wuxian's arms were wrapped around Lan Wangji's neck as they kissed wildly and inseparably. Suddenly, he exclaimed with an awe. Opening his eyes, he wiped a tinge of blood from his lips as he scolded, Lan Zan. Why are you biting like a dog again? His lips were kissed red in the first place. Stained with blood, they looked even more vivid. To his ill-timed dissatisfaction, Lan Wangji responded with another bite. Sore from all the biting and sucking, Wei Wuxian frowned. He reached down again in vengeance and rubbed him hard again. In all likelihood, nobody had ever done such a shamelessly brave act to Lan Wangji before. Once wasn't even enough, Wei Wuxian had to do it twice. His face changed immediately. The arm he embraced Wei Wuxian with tightened, fingers leaving behind clear marks. Wei Wuxian grinned as he caught his breath. How's that? You angry yet? You don't know this, Lan Zan, but I love it when you're angry. His tone was full of a fearless excitement. After he spoke, he pecked the corner of Lan Wangji's lips and removed his drenched top. Lan Wangji's skin was so hot that he seemed like he'd burst into flames. One hand locked around Wei Wuxian's waist, he slammed the edge of the wooden tub with his other hand. It split into pieces at once. The room immediately turned into a mess, the sight unbearable to the eye. The two couldn't be less concerned with these unimportant things. Lan Wangji almost picked Wei Wuxian up and threw him onto the bed. Just as Wei Wuxian propped himself up a bit, he was immediately pressed down again. Lan Wangji's gestures were more than fierce. He was nothing like the normal Han Guangjun, who was all righteous and sensible. Wei Wuxian's back hurt from the collision. He yelped a few times, and Lan Wangji paused shortly. Wei Wuxian immediately flipped around and pushed him onto the bed, holding him down as hard as he could. He said beside his ear, I couldn't tell you'd be so fierce in bed. The earlobe by his lips was white as jade. Wei Wuxian couldn't help himself from taking a soft bite. It was soft and cold. After he bit it, he took it into his mouth and sucked on it lightly. Lan Wangji's fingers tightened around Wei Wuxian's shoulders. The strength in his hands was abnormally strong. Wei Wuxian immediately gasped from the squeeze. He turned to look at his shoulder, which was already lined with 5 scarlet marks. Seeing this, Wei Wuxian shoved his thigh between Lan Wangji's legs and pressed, pretending to threaten him, What are you being so mean for? Careful, I. Right away, Lan Wangji reached towards Wei Wuxian's waist to untie his sash belt. Wei Wuxian purposely wanted to tease him as he slapped his hand away and smirked, Han Guangjun, so impatient? He didn't know if it was a hallucination or not, but Lan Wangji's eyes seemed to be bloodshot, almost glowing red. When he reached out again, Wei Wuxian swiftly dodged to the side. It's not like I won't take it off. I'll do it myself. After he said it, he indeed untied his sash belt and took off his lower garments. Stark naked, he lowered himself on Lan Wangji again. Both of the two were bare. Skin brushed against skin. With intimacy, they kissed, turning their heads. Wei Wuxian pressed the back of Lan Wangji's neck with his left hand, not letting him open up a single sliver of space between the two, biting and rubbing his lips. With his right hand, he chased down the graceful yet powerful lines of Lan Wangji's back. When he felt the somewhat uneven scars, he stroked them tenderly with the tips of his fingers. There was no less action on Lan Wangji's part. Those fair, slender hands swam around Wei Wuxian's body with his distinct knuckles before lingering at his waist and his hips, forcefully rubbing the delicate skin at the end of Wei Wuxian's thighs. It was as though Wei Wuxian had turned into a zither, plucked and strummed under the pair of hands. But the person who played him had not a single trace of the coldness and elegance of playing the seven-stringed zither. What Wei Wuxian let out weren't graceful zither notes either, but rather unbridled moans of pleasure. However, Lan Wangji's hands were just too strong, and he liked to pinch the sensitive regions as well. At first, Wei Wuxian was able to enjoy it, but it soon became an unbearable throbbing. He gasped, moving his stinging, swollen lips away. His chest heaved up and down. Han Guangjun, why are you like this after you take off your clothes? Where are you pinching? You really don't deserve to be called a gentleman. Feigning disappointment, he removed the completely ungentlemanly hand of Lan Wangji's. Lan Wangji let out a low growl, sounding quite dangerous. Wei Wuxian, don't be like this. Come on, I'll let you pinch me. Pinch here. As he spoke, he led Lan Wangji's hand towards his lower region, laughing quietly as he mumbled, pinch however you want to. Use your muscles. Amidst the buzz, Wei Wuxian felt he really had a self-taught obscenity when doing these things. But imagination was one thing, and action was another. He'd lived for 2 lives, and nobody had ever touched such a private part of his body aside from himself. When Lan Wangji's burning palm really enveloped him, Wei Wuxian couldn't help but tremble, curling himself up slightly. Yet, it felt too good being held within Lan Wangji's fingers and caressed at such a rhythm. Soon, Wei Wuxian unconsciously stretched his body, his arms climbing around Lan Wangji's back and shoulders to offer his member to those hands. Lan Wangji's movements quickened. Wei Wuxian breathed shallowly, closing his eyes in pleasure. His fingers wanted to cling on to something but could only stroke Lan Wangji's firm, bare back in vain. All of a sudden, he realized that he shouldn't be the only one who was feeling this good, and so his right hand searched for Lan Wangji's member as well. Just as he touched it, Wei Wuxian felt the hot, thick object swell a size larger, bouncing into his palm as hard as iron. Even touching it made his cheeks burn. He'd never thought he'd touch this particular region of a man. It was absolutely unimaginable. But whenever he remembered Lan Wangji was the one he was touching, Wei Wuxian would become so excited, he almost couldn't control his hands. He grabbed it, stroking it recklessly as he rubbed it with his slippery legs again and again. Lan Wangji's breath suddenly became heavier, while what was in Wei Wuxian's hand also throbbed, growing even hotter. Beside their ears were each other's insuppressible pants and Wei Wuxian's moans. However long had passed, Wei Wuxian felt all of the blood and pleasure in his body flood towards a single place. As his scalp tingled, a whimpering, almost broken voice leaked from his throat, Lan-san, wait, before he could even finish, the dangerous pleasure exploded through him. Wei Wuxian's voice froze. A moment of white flashed in his mind. Quite some time later, still dazed, he saw a few light traces on Lan Wangji's taut abdominal muscles. He finally realized that he'd released already. On the other hand, Lan Wangji released almost the same time he did, sending forth the white fluid between Wei Wuxian's legs. As Wei Wuxian moved, no matter how slightly, the embarrassing liquid slowly slid down, dripping onto his sensitive region. It felt extremely obvious. He could tell there was a mess even without looking at it. The viscosity felt a bit uncomfortable down his gluteal cleft, but what was more apparent was an incomparable sense of satisfaction. Lan Wangji's head was buried into Wei Wuxian's chest, his warm body atop Wei Wuxian. Wei Wuxian was all out of energy, limp all the way from his head to his fingertips. He felt so relaxed he didn't even want to move his hand. Only after a long while did their breathing return to normal. Even though he was so heavily pressed down, his heart was full of peace and contentment. Wei Wuxian pecked at Lan Wangji's hair. What enveloped the two, apart from the soft sandalwood, was the refreshing scent of soap, after they'd bathed. The sensual aroma was not as evident. Wei Wuxian had buried the things he wanted to ask Lan Wangji inside of him for a long time, too afraid to ask. Only right now, as the two lay side by side, did he feel a bit more confident. He lowered his voice, "Lan Zan. Are you listening?" A moment later, Lan Wangji replied with a "Mn." "Wei Wuxian, I have to tell you something." He breathed lightly before speaking, "Lan Zan, thank you." With thousands of words, there was nowhere to start. If he didn't meet Lan Wangji when he came back, Wei Wuxian didn't know what he'd be like right now. In reality, even if he roamed around alone, it wouldn't necessarily be that bad. But no matter what, he believed that nothing would be better than this. Unfortunately, he didn't notice that after Lan Wangji heard this, his body froze slightly. The surging heat finally began to retreat. Wei Wuxian's head was still dizzy as he rambled on, "In these 2 lives, you've helped me a lot. I know you're really nice to me. You're really great. Apart from thank you, I don't know what else to say to you. Anyways, towards you, I feel. But this wasn't the point at all. Wei Wuxian had never confessed like this to anyone before. Even someone whose face was as thick as his felt a bit embarrassed. He could only first pick a few random things to say. Just as he was thinking how to explain himself to make it sound sincere and serious when Lan Wangji suddenly pushed him away. With how sudden it was, Wei Wuxian's back slammed hard against the bed. He widened his eyes, so surprised that he couldn't move. On the other hand, Lan Wangji sat upright. His chest heaved. His breathing was a bit rushed. In silence, the two stared at each other for a long time. The first to move was Lan Wangji. His face was pale, but his eyes were clear. He first picked up a white piece of clothing from the ground to cover Wei Wuxian, and then went to find something for himself. Wei Wuxian was still confused. He almost couldn't believe what had happened. The push was as though a dream had turned into a nightmare, as though a bucket of water had poured down his head, as though somebody had just slapped him hard on the face. He finally found the ability to speak again. Voice hoarse, he tried, "Lan Zan, you're awake?" Lan Wangji had already finished dressing himself. Sitting far on one side, he wiped his forehead with his right hand. He turned around, facing the mess on the ground, with his back towards Wei Wuxian. A while later, he finally whispered, "Amen." Although Wei Wuxian didn't know when he woke up, now that he was awake, Lan Wangji's reaction meant that one thing was clear: he didn't want to continue what they were doing. He didn't want to listen to Wei Wuxian finish what he was saying, either. Wei Wuxian finally realized just how cruel what he did was. In Chapter The Grand Master of Demonic Cultivation. Chapter 95. Longing, Part 7. Wei Wuxian finally realized. All those promises of "I'll only ask him a few questions, I won't do anything else" he made to himself before he made Lan Wangji drink were only self-deception. That the most disciplined person would throw tantrums, hit people, mess about after he was drunk, meant that Lan Wangji's drunken actions weren't self-controlled. And, even though Wei Wuxian knew this, he still took advantage of the easy manipulation, purposely provoking him and leading him to do what he wanted. No matter how ascetic he was, Lan Wangji was an ordinary man, after all. Having been teased so rudely by him, how could he have kept his calm? Just the day before, Lan Wangji was humiliated by Zhang Qing with such a matter, and right now he was still worried about his brother, Yet Wei Wuxian had to mess things up like this. Lan Wangji didn't say anything else after the MN, but Wei Wuxian had already thought of a bunch of things on his own. In the 2 lives he lived, he'd never learned how to write the word shame, but right now, he understood more than anyone. His lips were still stinging and swollen, while the stickiness at his abdomen and between his legs embarrassed him even more. He could slam his head against the wall right now. This situation clearly verified the worst possibility. Lan Wangji was indeed very nice towards him, but it probably wasn't the kind of nice he hoped for. Not wanting to make Lan Wangji feel awkward, Wei Wuxian scrambled to put on his outer clothes and pants. As he dressed, he slapped one side of his forehead, speaking in a tone not much different from his usual one. "You're awake." "Well, I'm pretty much awake too." Lan Wangji turned around and looked at him. Wei Wuxian didn't dare take a guess at the emotions that were inside of his eyes. Arms trembling slightly, he grabbed his clothes and hurried to put them over his head. He watched as Lan Wangji reached out towards him, after a moment of silence, as though wanting to help him wipe away the fluid on his body. Wei Wuxian blurted, "No thanks." Lan Wangji's hand paused in midair before being retracted. Wei Wuxian let out a sigh of relief, murmuring, "You don't have to. I'll do it on my own. You don't have to touch me." Someone like Lan Wangji would likely feel that he ruined the other's appearance after he did it with them. Wei Wuxian definitely didn't have the face to let Lan Wangji clean him. He fumbled for a piece of undergarment, wiped himself with it, and tossed it away. Lanzon, both of us probably drank too much tonight. My apologies." Lan Wangji didn't say anything. Wei Wuxian only put on one boot before continuing, "But you don't have to feel too apologetic either. It's normal for men to be like this sometimes. Please don't take it too seriously." Lan Wangji looked at him quietly. "Normal?" His voice sounded more than calm. Wei Wuxian didn't dare respond. Lan Wangji asked again, "Do not take it too seriously?" Originally, Wei Wuxian thought that compared to having his feelings be found out and then become so awkward they couldn't even be friends, he'd much rather have Lan Wangji feel that he was a cheap, flippant person instead. But right now, he began to regret saying those idiotic things without thinking about them first. He whispered, "I'm sorry." Lan Wangji suddenly stood up. Wei Wuxian began to panic. At this point, the owner of the inn suddenly ran upstairs, knocking on the room door. Young masters, are you in bed?" Lan Wangji averted his gaze. Wei Wuxian hurried to put on his other boot. "No. I mean, yes we are. Hold on, I'll get up after I put on some clothes." Only after Wei Wuxian dressed himself did Lan Wangji walk over and open the door. "Wei Wuxian, what's wrong?" Standing in the hallway, the owner smiled apologetically. "I'm really sorry to disturb your sleep so late at night. Please don't mind. But I have no choice, either. The guest sleeping below you said that water dripped into the room. I thought it might be from your room, so I came to check." She looked inside the room and was immediately shocked. What happened here?" Wei Wuxian touched his chin. "I'm the one who should be sorry. My apologies, ma'am. I drank too much tonight and wanted to take a bath. Things were going great so I slapped the tub a few times, and then it broke. I'm really sorry, I'll pay for it." Right after he said it, he remembered that he couldn't possibly pay. On their trip, Lan Wangji was the one responsible all of their expenses. In the end, Lan Wangji was still the one who'd pay for all this. Although the owner kept on saying it's fine and don't worry, her face was extremely distressed. She walked inside. "Just how did the water leak down? There isn't even a place to put my feet in this room." She bent down, picked up a few sitting mats, and exclaimed again, "Why is there a hole here?" It was the one that Lan Wangji made using bacon. Wei Wuxian combed his hand through his somewhat messy hair. He could only repeat his apologies. "Yeah, that's my fault as well. I played around with my sword, and Before he could even finish, Lan Wangji had already picked up the money pouch on the ground and placed a piece of silver on the table. The owner's expression softened quite a lot, but she still had to say a few words, hand at her chest. "Young master, no offense, but how could you throw around something as dangerous as a sword? It's not that big of a deal if you poke a hole through the mat and the floor, but what if you hurt someone?" Wei Wuxian: "Yes, yes. You're right, ma'am." The owner took the money. "Then this'll be it for now. It's so late already too. You can rest first. I'll switch you two to a new room and deal with this one tomorrow morning." Wei Wuxian: "Yes, please, thank you. Wait. Then, could we have 2 rooms please?" The owner mused. "Why 2 rooms?" Wei Wuxian didn't dare look at Lan Wangji. He lowered his voice: "I go berserk whenever I drink. You saw, didn't you? I throw things around and play with my sword. Wouldn't want to hurt anyone, either." The owner: "Indeed." After she answered, she indeed switched them to 2 rooms before she walked downstairs, holding the hem of her dress. Wei Wuxian expressed his gratitude and opened the door to his room. Turning around, he saw Lan Wangji standing in the hallway, holding bacon in one hand and fiddling with his forehead ribbon in the other. He looked down and said nothing. Wei Wuxian wanted to hide inside his room as soon as possible, but after he looked, he couldn't walk another step. With much thought, he finally spoke, careful yet sincere: "Lan-san, about tonight, I'm sorry." With a wall of silence, Lan Wangji breathed, "You do not have to say this to me." After he put on his forehead ribbon properly, he became the disciplined Han Guangjun once more. He nodded: "Rest well. We will talk about the Guanyin temple and going to Lanling tomorrow." With this, Wei Wuxian felt a bit better. At least they had something to talk about tomorrow. He grinned: "Yeah, you too. Rest well. Let's talk about it tomorrow." In Chapter The Grand Master of Demonic Cultivation. Chapter 96. Longing, Part 8. After stepping into the room and shutting the door behind him, Wei Wuxian leaned against the door frame. When he heard Lan Wangji close the door to his room, he immediately reached out and slapped himself on the face. He plopped down onto the wooden bed and buried his still steaming face into his palms. Even after a long while, the heat didn't melt away, both in his face and in his body. He even grabbed the teapot on the table and poured it over his head, but it was still no use at all. Right now, his entire body was covered in the Lan Wangji scent. Wei Wuxian knew that if he continued to stay here, with the thought that Lan Wangji was just a wall away from him, in addition to what they were doing just a few moments ago, he probably wouldn't be able to calm down throughout the whole night. He definitely couldn't stay here. He pushed the window open and stepped onto the windowsill. Like a black cat, he lightly leapt out, landing without making a sound on one of the streets outside the inn. It was already late into the night. There were no people on the street, which made it convenient for Wei Wuxian to speed into a sprint. Passing the wall that Lan Wangji had graffitied when he was drunk, Wei Wuxian finally stopped in his tracks. On the wall were rabbits, pheasants, and little figures, all in a disarray. As he looked, Wei Wuxian once again recalled how dedicated Lan Wangji was when he drew these, along with how he dragged him over and wanted him to admire them. He couldn't help but smile a bit. An unparalleled sense of regret rushed into his heart. If only he didn't let himself go so wild when he was drunk. At least he would have been able to pretend like he was all honest and full of integrity, sleeping soundlessly or pretending to sleep all snuggled up beside Lan Wangji without any shame. Instead, he was spending a sleepless night on the streets outside of the inn, running like a headless fly to let out his emotions. Wei Wuxian reached out, stroking the 2 kissing figures on the wall, and arrived at the words Lan Wangji was here right above it. He had to erase these words, but before he did so, he used his fingertip to trace the lines of the name Lan Wangji. Once, twice, thrice. The more he traced them, the more he didn't want to let go. Suddenly, picking up on a shuffling sound, he felt alarmed, as it was the middle of the night. As he walked around the corner and looked, he saw a black-robed figure lean forward against the wall, holding a file and trying to even out the graffiti marks on the wall with much dedication. Wei Wuxian. Wen Ning turned around. His face was covered in white dust. "Young master, why are you here?" "Wei Wuxian, what are you doing?" "Oh. Wen Ning, young master Lan wrote so much. If the people here woke up tomorrow morning and saw this, it'd probably cause them quite a lot of trouble, so I'm here to get rid of some of them." After a pause, he asked, "Where is young master Lan?" Wei Wuxian looked down. "He went to bed. I went out to walk around." Wen Ning noticed that his mood wasn't as usual. He paused what he was doing. "Young master, did something happen?" He walked a few steps towards Wei Wuxian before suddenly halting, and quickly backing away. Wei Wuxian hesitated in confusion. "What are you doing this time?" Wen Ning seemed as if he was scared, waving his hands. No, nothing." Wei Wuxian could tell at first glance that he was feeling embarrassed. Unconsciously, he glanced at himself, and realized he had a few red fingerprints on his wrists, made by Lan Wangji when he grabbed him and pushed him onto the bed. He touched his lips. They were also still slightly swollen. When they dizzily rolled around on the bed, hugging so hard they almost became one, Lan Wangji bit and nibbled at his body. His neck was probably quite a scene as well. If Wen Ning had any blood on his face, he would have been blushing so hard the bleed seeped out. At this point, Wei Wuxian didn't know what to say either. Ugh. He sat down beside the corner of the wall and sighed, "I want alcohol." Wen Ning immediately replied, "I'll go buy some." Wei Wuxian, "Come back. What are you running for?" Wen Ning came back again, searching for alcohol. Wei Wuxian, I was only saying that, and you really went to search. You're not really my servant, are you? Wen Ning, I know. Wei Wuxian, besides, do you have money? Wen Ning, no. Wei Wuxian, you see? I knew it. Wen Ning envied, but young Master Lan has a lot. A lot of money. It's so nice. Ugh. Wei Wuxian slammed the back of his head onto the wall a few times, sighing a bunch. Never mind. I won't drink ever again. Wen Ning was surprised. Why? Wei Wuxian, alcohol makes things go wrong. I'm gonna go abstinent. Wen Ning's lips twitched. Wei Wuxian, what do you mean by this? You don't believe me? Wen Ning mumbled, no. But back then, didn't sister fail to get you off alcohol, even after trying everything she could? Ha ha. Wei Wuxian recalled, she just poked holes into my body with her needles every other day or so, didn't she? After he laughed for enough, Wei Wuxian suddenly spoke up, Wen Ning, have you ever thought about what you want to do, after this whole mess has ended? Wen Ning paused in surprise, what I want to do? Right now, in this world, Wen Ning didn't have many close friends left. In fact, he didn't even know many of the people. Since long ago, he hadn't been good at thinking for himself, much less making decisions. He was either following Wen King or Wei Wuxian. Apart from this, he likely didn't know where he should go or where he could go for that matter. But Wei Wuxian had always hoped that he could find his own path. Saying it like this, though, seemed as if he was chasing him away. He thought about it some more. Wen Ning didn't know where he was going, but he didn't know either, did he? In the beginning, when he was with Lan Wangji, he never thought about this problem at all. He took it as granted that they'd continue like this without change. But after tonight, maybe he and Lan Wangji wouldn't go back to how they were ever again. Without Lan Wangji, it seemed as if it wasn't too impossible for him to roam the world on his own. But a voice in Wei Wuxian's heart told him with clarity, no, you can't. The words he said back on Koi Tower really proved to be true. The current Wei Wuxian couldn't do without Lan Wangji. Wei Wuxian let out a long sigh, despairing, I want to drink. The more he thought about it, the more dispirited he felt. The anxiety that had nowhere to go finally became a raging fire. He leapt up, fuck. Wen Ning, let's go. Wen Ning, where are we going? Wei Wuxian, looking for trouble. In Chapter